I had just stepped out of the car when I saw them standing on the porch. My old man and my sister. They weren't just standing there. They were waiting. Like they had rehearsed this. Like this was something they'd been looking forward to all day. My boots hit the gravel still dusted from Berlin. My duffel bag was slung over my shoulder heavy with everything I hadn't unpacked yet from Checkpoint Charlie. I hadn't even made it halfway up the walkway when my father said it. "Son. We sold your house." Just like that. No hello. No welcome home. No hug. My sister laughed first. "Oh, come on, Dad. Just say it," she said, nudging him with her elbow, grinning like she couldn't wait to watch this land. He didn't hesitate. "You're homeless now." They both laughed. Actually laughed. Right there on the porch I paid for. In front of the house I bought with my own money after my third deployment. The house I rebuilt room by room. The house I called every week to check on while I was halfway across the world. For a second, everything went quiet. Not outside. The birds were still going. Wind humming. A lawn mower down the street. But inside my head. Like something had been cut clean through. I stopped walking. "What are you talking about?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. My sister Lila snorted like I had just asked the dumbest question in the world. "God, you really don't know, do you?" she said, folding her arms. "We sold it like weeks ago. Try to keep up." My father leaned casually against the porch railing like this was nothing more than a conversation about the weather. "You weren't here," he added. "And your sister needed help." There it was. Of course she needed help. Family helps family. I had heard that line my entire life. It just never applied in both directions. I shifted the weight of my bag on my shoulder and looked at them. Really looked. My father. Older than I remembered, but not softer. Still carrying that stubborn set in his jaw. The same certainty that whatever he decided was right. Lila. Perfect as always. Hair done. Nails painted. Standing on a porch she didn't build. Laughing about a house she never paid for. And something inside me didn't break. It settled. Like dust after an explosion. They were still smiling when I did something neither of them expected. I smiled back. Slow. Steady. Enough to make both of them stop laughing. My father frowned first. "What's so funny?" he asked. I adjusted my grip on my duffel bag and took one more step forward. "Bottom of the porch." "The house you sold," I said calmly. I let the words hang there. "Wasn't what you thought it was." Lila's smile faltered. My father straightened. And for the first time since I walked up that driveway, they weren't laughing anymore. But before I tell you what that meant, before I explain why neither of them had any idea what they'd actually done, you need to understand how we got here. Because none of this was sudden. None of this was a mistake. And by the time I stepped onto that gravel driveway, they had already crossed a line they didn't even know existed. 3 months earlier, I was stationed in Berlin. Checkpoint Charlie isn't what people think it is. Not anymore. It's not just history. It's still a place that hums with tension if you know how to listen. Tourists come and take pictures. But if you stand there long enough, you feel it. The weight of decisions. The echo of lines drawn between people who used to belong to each other. I liked it there. Not because it was easy. Because it made sense. Orders were clear. Boundaries were clear. Consequences were clear. Unlike home. My routine was simple. Early mornings. Long shifts. Cold air that bit through your jacket, no matter how layered you were. In between, just enough quiet to think. Sometimes more than I wanted. I called home every week. At first, it felt normal. My father would answer. Short conversations. Updates about the house. About the neighborhood. About nothing important. Lila had moved back in. She just needs a little time, he said. Things didn't work out. Things never worked out for Lila. They just collapsed and someone else cleaned it up. Usually my father. Sometimes me. I didn't question it at first. I was used to it. But after a while, things started to feel off. He sounded distracted. Irritated. Like I was interrupting something. Once I heard voices in the background. Not just Lila. Other people. Laughter that didn't belong in my living room. Did she send the money yet? Someone said. The line went dead 2 seconds later. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. When I called back, no answer. I told myself I was overthinking it. I told myself I didn't understand what was happening back home anymore. That's the thing about distance. It makes you doubt your instincts. 2 weeks before I was scheduled to come back, I got a message from my father. No greeting. No explanation. Just, call me before you come home. I read it 3 times. Something about it sat wrong in my chest. Like a warning I couldn't translate. I tried calling. Voicemail twice. I almost pushed harder. Almost. But duty hours got heavy that week. Long shifts. Early reports. By the time I had a moment to breathe, I convinced myself it wasn't urgent. I was coming home anyway. Whatever it was could wait. And then it didn't. Because instead of walking into my house, dropping my bag, and finally resting, I walked into a punch I never saw coming. Sold. Gone. Laughed at. Standing there on that gravel driveway, looking up at the 2 people who were supposed to be my family. I realized something I should have understood a long time ago. They didn't think they had done anything wrong. That was the part that mattered. Not the sale. Not the money. Not even the betrayal. It was the certainty. The belief that I would just take it. Like I always had. I shifted my weight again, letting the silence stretch. Because Marines don't react the way people expect. We observe. We assess. And when we move, we already know exactly what we're doing. And right then, standing at the bottom of that porch with my father staring at me and my sister waiting for me to break. I knew something they didn't. They thought they had taken everything from me. They had no idea. They had just handed me everything I needed. Checkpoint Charlie teaches you how to read silence. Not the peaceful kind. The loaded kind. The kind that sits just under the surface of a place where history didn't just happen. It pressed itself into the ground and stayed. Berlin in the winter sharpens everything. The air cuts cleaner. The sky feels lower. Even sounds. Footsteps. Engines. Voices. They carry farther, like they don't have anywhere else to go. I worked long shifts there. Early mornings when the streets were still gray and half asleep. Late evenings when the tourists cleared out and the city exhaled. There's something about standing watch in a place that used to divide the world that changes how you see things. Lines matter. Authority matters. Permission matters. And maybe that's why, without realizing it at first, I started noticing the lines at home. It didn't feel right anymore. At first, it was small. Just the way my father answered the phone. Hey. Instead of hey, kiddo. How's everything? Instead of asking me how I was. He used to ask every time. The weather. Was I eating enough? Was I sleeping? He used to care about the details. The small things. Now it felt like I was checking in with a landlord. Not calling home. Lila, of course, was suddenly always around. I'd hear her voice in the background. Loud. Confident. Laughing like she owned the place. She's just getting back on her feet, my father would say. I'd ask what happened this time. It's complicated. It was always complicated when it came to Lila. Never simple. Never her fault. One night, I called later than usual. Time zones blur when you're deployed long enough. The phone rang longer than usual. When my father finally picked up, his voice sounded off. Not just tired. Guarded. "Hey," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Hey," I replied. "Did I wake you?" "No, no," he said. I heard something shuffle. Like a door closing in the background. Just busy. Busy. At 10 at night. I leaned against the cold metal railing outside the barracks, watching my breath fog in the air. "What's going on over there?" I asked. "Nothing," he said. "Same as always." Then muffled. But clear enough. "Did she send it yet?" A man's voice. Not my father. Not anyone I recognized. The line went dead. Just like that. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it. For a long second, I didn't move. Did she send what? Who was that? I called back immediately. Voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I stood there, the cold creeping through my jacket, and felt something twist low in my gut. Every instinct I'd trained for years lit up at once. But instinct doesn't always win against loyalty. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I didn't have the full picture. I told myself I was too far away to understand what was really happening. That's the dangerous part. Distance doesn't just separate you physically. It softens your certainty. The next time I called, my father acted like nothing had happened. Conversation was normal. Short. Surface level. Lila even got on the phone for a minute. "Miss you, sis," she said. Her voice light. Almost sweet. That should have been my second warning. Lila didn't miss me. Lila missed access. "You should send some of those European chocolates back," she added with a laugh. "The fancy kind." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Yeah," I said. "Maybe." After we hung up, I stayed sitting on my bunk longer than usual. The room was dim. Lit only by the small desk lamp near the wall. Around me, the usual noise. Boots on concrete. Distant voices. I replayed the call in my head. The voice. The question. The silence after. And then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened my banking app. Everything looked normal. No large withdrawals. No strange charges. No obvious red flags. That should have reassured me. Instead, it made the feeling worse. Because if something was wrong, it wasn't obvious. It was quiet. Careful. Planned. A few days later, during a rare slow moment, I sat down across from a guy in my unit. Older. Been in longer than me. "You look like you're running scenarios," he said. I glanced up. "Something like that." "Work?" I shook my head. "Home." He nodded once. Didn't ask more. Didn't need to. After a moment, he said, "Worst mistakes I've seen, they happen when people assume home is safe." I let that sit. "Safe how?" I asked. He shrugged slightly. "Safe from consequences. Safe from scrutiny. Safe from being checked." I looked down at my coffee. Dark. Bitter. Still. "You ever see family do something they shouldn't?" I asked. He gave a quiet, humorless smile. "More times than I can count." "And what do you do?" He leaned back. "You get the facts first. Not feelings. Facts." That stuck with me. Facts. Not feelings. That night, I pulled up my property records. Not the casual overview. The detailed files. Everything tied to the house. Ownership. Loan. Legal structure. And that's when I saw it. A notification. Small. Easy to miss. Ownership activity. Pending review. My name was still there. But there was another entry. Incomplete. Like someone had started something, but hadn't finished it. I stared at the screen. My pulse didn't spike. It didn't race. It slowed. That's how you know something's serious. Panic is loud. Clarity is quiet. I didn't call my father. Not yet. I didn't call Lila. I didn't confront anyone. Instead, I opened a new tab. County Records Office. Request forms. Documentation. If something was happening, I wasn't going to guess. I was going to know. Because whatever line had been crossed, I had a feeling it wasn't just about money. And the more I looked at that partial transfer, the more one thought kept circling in my head. They think I don't see it. They think I won't check. They think distance makes me blind. I closed the laptop slowly and leaned back. Outside, the Berlin night pressed against the window, quiet and watchful. Lines matter. And someone back home had just stepped over one. If you want to understand what someone will risk, you have to understand what they're afraid to lose. For my father, it was never the house. It wasn't money. It wasn't even me. It was Lila. My sister had always been the center of his gravity. Not because she earned it. Not because she deserved it. Because she needed it. At least that's what he told himself. Growing up, the difference between us wasn't subtle. It wasn't hidden. It was the kind of thing everyone saw, but no one said out loud. Lila cried. I didn't. Lila struggled. I adapted. Lila failed loudly and often. I learned to fix things before they broke. Somewhere along the way, that turned into something permanent. She became the one who needed saving. I became the one who could handle anything. At first, it didn't bother me. When we were kids, I even understood it. She was softer. More emotional. Quick to spiral. Quick to panic. The kind of person who made people step in instinctively. I was the opposite. Quiet. Observant. The one teachers didn't worry about. The one who turned in assignments early. Who didn't cause problems. Who didn't need attention to function. And my father leaned into that difference like it was a rule. If Lila needed something, she got it. If I needed something, I figured it out. It didn't feel unfair back then. It just felt normal. After my mother died, it got worse. Not overnight. Steadily. Like a slow shift in weight. You don't notice until it's already leaning too far in one direction. Lila unraveled. That's the word my father used. She's having a hard time, he'd say. She's just going through something. She needs me right now. And every time he said that, what he meant was, you don't. I was 16 when I got my first job. Not because I had to. Because I knew better than to ask. Lila was 19 when she dropped out of college. Not because she couldn't handle it. Because she didn't want to. My father called it finding herself. He paid off her tuition loans. He let her move back in. He told her she had all the time in the world. I enlisted at 21. Not as an escape. As a decision. Structure. Purpose. Something earned. My father hugged me at the recruitment office like he was losing something. Lila didn't even show up. She's not good with goodbyes, he told me. I didn't say anything. I never did. That was the pattern. Lila made choices. My father absorbed the consequences. And I stayed out of the way. Over the years, the story stayed the same. Lila got into a relationship that fell apart. She trusted the wrong guy. Lila lost a job. They didn't appreciate her. Lila racked up debt. She's just bad with money. Every problem came with a soft explanation. Every explanation came with a solution. And the solution was always my father. Until it wasn't enough. That's when the calls to me started getting different. Not direct. Not honest. Just suggestive. "You're doing well, right?" he'd ask. "Better than your sister, anyway." I knew what that meant. "You don't have as many expenses as we do here." Another hint. "You've always been good with money." There it was. I sent money a few times. Not because he asked. Because I understood. Or I thought I did. Family helps family. But it never flowed both ways. Not really. Because when I needed something, real help, not money, what I got was pride. "You're strong," he'd say. "You'll figure it out." And I did every time. Which only reinforced the idea that I didn't need anything. That's the thing about being the reliable one. People stop checking if you're okay. They assume. They expect. And eventually they take. I remember one conversation in particular. A few years before Berlin. I had just gotten back from deployment. Exhausted. Burned out. I called home. Not to check on them. Because I needed something. Just a place to land, I thought. "Hey," I said when my father picked up. "You home?" "Of course," he replied. "I was thinking of coming by for a few days. Just decompress a bit." There was a pause. "Well," he said slowly. "Lila's here right now. She's going through a lot." I closed my eyes. I wouldn't be in the way. "It's just not a great time," he replied. "Not a great time for me. In my own house." I didn't argue. I didn't push. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I get it." And I hung up. That was the moment something shifted. From that point on, I stopped expecting. I still gave. Still called. Still showed up when I could. But I stopped assuming I had a place. Because deep down, I already knew I didn't. So when Lila moved back in again while I was in Berlin, I didn't question it. Of course she did. Of course my father let her. Of course, whatever she had done became something he had to fix. That was the pattern. And patterns don't break on their own. They escalate. Looking back, the signs weren't subtle. They were just familiar. Lila calling more often than usual. Asking small questions. "Hey, is everything okay with the house? Did you ever think about selling? Is the market good right now?" Casual. Too casual. At the time, I brushed it off. "Why?" I asked once. "Oh, no reason," she said lightly. "Just curious." That word sat wrong even then. But distance makes you doubt. And family makes you excuse. Now standing in that driveway watching her smirk at me like she just won something. I saw it clearly. This wasn't new. This wasn't sudden. This was years in the making. Years of "she needs, you don't." She struggles. You're fine. She takes. You give. And eventually even your place is negotiable. My father didn't sell my house because he hated me. He sold it because in his mind, I could afford to lose it. Lila couldn't afford not to gain from it. That was the math. That was the logic. That was the justification. And the worst part? He truly believed it. That's what made it dangerous. Because when someone convinces themselves they're right, there's no line they won't cross. I shifted my stance at the bottom of the porch. My boots crunched lightly against the gravel. Lila crossed her arms again. Impatience creeping back into her expression. "Well," she said. "You going to say something or just stand there?" I looked at her. then at my father. Then back at the house. For the first time since I got back, I felt something settle into place. Not anger. Not grief. Not even betrayal. Clarity. Because now I understood something they didn't. This wasn't about taking something from me. This was about them thinking they could. And that assumption was about to cost them more than they ever imagined. The moment I saw that partial ownership change on my screen, something in me shifted. Not emotionally. Strategically. Emotion reacts. Strategy waits. I had learned the hard way that the first move is rarely the right one. Especially when you don't have all the facts. So, I didn't call my father. I didn't text Lila. I started digging. The next morning, I found a quiet corner near the administrative offices and asked one of the JAG officers if he had a few minutes. He gave me 10. That was all I needed. I didn't go into the whole story. I didn't talk about family dynamics. I just showed him the notification. Ownership activity pending review. My name is still on it, I said. But there's another entry. He scanned the screen. His expression neutral at first. Then he asked one question. Who is your power of attorney? My father, I said. Something in his face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. He leaned back, folded his hands, and gave a slow nod. All right, he said. Let's walk through this. No panic. No alarm. Just procedure. That's how you know something is serious. When the person trained to deal with problems doesn't react emotionally. This happens more than people think, he said. Service members deploy. Family steps in. Lines get blurred. Blurred? I asked. The kind that turn into legal issues. Then he started explaining. Power of attorney doesn't equal ownership. It allows someone to act on your behalf, but within limits. Bills. Maintenance. Emergency decisions. But selling property? That's not automatic. Not with federally backed loans. Not without specific authorizations. Not without documentation. Not without you. Do you remember how you purchased the house? He asked. Yes. VA loan. He nodded once. That adds another layer. I felt something cold settle into place. What should I do? I asked. Get the facts, he said. All of them. Don't assume anything. Don't confront anyone yet. Request full records from the county. Title changes. Transaction logs. Signatures. Everything. Facts. Not feelings. I thanked him, stood up, and walked out of that office with something I didn't have the day before. Direction. That same afternoon, I submitted the requests. Every form. Every document. I didn't rush it. I didn't cut corners. A week later, the file came through. I opened it on my bunk. The room was quiet except for the hum of the overhead fan. I expected confusion. A misunderstanding. What I got instead was clarity. Cold. Precise. Unmistakable. My father had signed the first authorization 2 days after our last normal phone call. The second, a week later. The third. The one that allowed the property to move forward towards sale. On the same day I had told him I missed home. I stared at the timestamps. The signatures. The names. Then I saw it. The buyer connection. Not a random buyer. Not a stranger. Someone linked. Someone familiar. Someone who specialized in quick deals. Quick means corners. Quick means pressure. Quick means someone doesn't want scrutiny. Then I saw the transfer notes. Funds dispersed. One of the destination accounts was tied to Lila. Not directly. But close enough. Close enough that it didn't matter. I sat there for a long time. Not moving. Not reacting. Just processing. Betrayal doesn't always feel like an explosion. Sometimes it feels like something slowly freezing over inside you. Layer by layer until everything is still. That night, my father called. I didn't answer. I let it ring. Instead of answering, I started building a timeline. Every call. Every message. Every transaction. Every signature. I cross-referenced everything. Dates. Amounts. Names. Patterns. The more I mapped it out, the clearer it became. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't desperation in a single moment. This was a sequence. A plan. Maybe not a smart one. But a deliberate one. They thought they had done something simple. Sell the house. Get the money. Fix Lila's problem. Move on. What they didn't understand was what they had actually stepped into. This wasn't just a family decision. It was legal. Federal. Documented. Traceable. And most importantly, reversible if handled correctly. That's when the idea formed. Not revenge. Not in the loud dramatic way people imagine. Exposure. Truth placed in the right hands at the right time with the right evidence. I didn't need to scare them. I didn't need to convince them. I just needed the system to do what it was designed to do. And systems don't care about family. They care about facts. Over the next few days, I did everything quietly. No announcements. No warnings. I confirmed the loan structure. Verified the restrictions. Reviewed what power of attorney did and did not allow. Every answer led to the same conclusion. They had gone too far. Farther than they realized. Farther than they could fix on their own. By the time my deployment ended, I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel angry. I felt ready. I booked my flight home without telling anyone. No calls. No messages. I landed early in the morning. That kind of morning where the sky is still undecided. Half dark. Half light. I rented a car. Drove straight from the airport to the county recorder's office. Walked in with my paperwork. Walked out with everything I needed. Complete records. Stamped. Verified. Real. And as I sat in that parking lot afterward, the engine off, the silence pressing in around me, I flipped through the pages one more time. Signatures. Dates. Errors. All of it. They thought they had finished something. They thought the story was over. But they hadn't closed anything. They had opened something. And they had no idea how wide. I closed the folder slowly and rested it on the passenger seat. Then I looked out through the windshield at the quiet street ahead. Real strength doesn't look like confrontation. It looks like restraint. It looks like patience. It looks like knowing exactly when to act. And when I pulled into that driveway later that day and saw my father and Lila standing on the porch, smiling, laughing, waiting for me to break, I already knew something they didn't. They thought they had taken my home. In reality, they had just given me the one thing they couldn't control anymore. The truth. And truth, when documented, doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be seen. I let the silence stretch. Not because I didn't have anything to say. Because silence makes people uncomfortable. It makes them fill the space. It makes them reveal more than they mean to. Lila shifted first. God, she always did. Well, she said, her voice sharper now. You going to stand there all day or are you actually going to say something? My father crossed his arms. Irritation settling into his face. We already explained it, he said. The house is sold. It's done. Done. That word. I set my duffel bag down slowly at the edge of the walkway. Not aggressively. Just deliberately. You sold it 3 weeks ago? I asked. My voice stayed level. My father nodded. Right decision, he said. Your sister needed help. Lila tilted her head, smirking again. You act like we burned it down or something. Relax. You'll buy another one. You always land on your feet. There it was. The assumption that I would absorb it. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't worried. Not even a little. She thought this was over. What she didn't understand was that they hadn't even reached the beginning yet. I shifted my weight slightly and glanced past them toward the front door. It was open. For a second, I caught a glimpse of something inside that didn't belong to me. A throw blanket. Different color. Different texture. Someone else's. So they didn't just sell it. They closed it fast. Too fast. I looked back at my father. You used the power of attorney, I said. Not a question. A statement. He frowned slightly. Of course I did. That's what it's for. I nodded once. Handling bills. Maintenance. Emergencies. He scoffed. It gave me the authority to act. You weren't here. Lila rolled her eyes. God, here we go. You always do this. You make everything into some big deal. I didn't look at her. Not yet. I kept my focus on my father. Did you talk to an attorney? I asked. That made him pause. Just a fraction of a second. But enough. We didn't need one, he said. It was a simple sale. Who handled it? I asked. He hesitated. Longer this time. Lila jumped in. Some guy Dad knows. Vance. He does this stuff all the time. It was easy. Vance. That name slid into place like a missing piece. I had seen it in the documents. I let out a quiet breath. Just acknowledgement. Then I finally looked at Lila. Did you sign anything? I asked. Any documents connected to the sale? She blinked. What? Why would I? It wasn't my house. There it was. The first crack. I turned back to my father. Did you? I asked. His jaw tightened. I signed what needed to be signed. What needed to be signed? I repeated. I let that hang there. Behind them, the front door creaked slightly. And then I saw her. A woman stepped out onto the porch. Mid-30s. Soft expression. Holding a mug like she wasn't sure if she should be part of this. She looked at me. Then at my father. Then at Lila. Is everything okay? She asked carefully. Lila straightened. Yeah, it's fine. Just family stuff. Family stuff. That phrase again. I stepped forward one pace. Not enough to invade. Just enough to shift the dynamic. You live here? I asked. She nodded slowly. We just moved in. About a week ago. A week. So the closing had already happened. Final. Complete. That's what they thought. I gave her a small polite nod. Congratulations. She smiled faintly. Uncertain. Thank you. Then I looked at my father again. His shoulders were tighter now. His posture less relaxed. Good. Did you tell her everything? I asked. Lila scoffed. Oh my God. What is wrong with you? My father's voice sharpened. Nina, that's enough. You're not going to drag other people into this. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't step closer. I'm not dragging anyone into anything, I said calmly. You already did that. The woman's grip tightened around her mug. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't understand what's going on." I held her gaze. And for the first time since I stepped onto that driveway, I let a little of the truth surface. "When you bought this house," I said, "did you have an attorney present?" She hesitated. "No. The agent said it wasn't necessary. It was a quick sale." "Quick again." I nodded slowly. "Did you verify ownership directly with the county?" She shook her head. My father stepped forward. "That's enough," he snapped. "You're confusing her." I turned to him. "No. You already did that." Silence. Heavy. Thick. Lila's smirk was gone now. Completely. My father's face had lost color. And the woman looked like someone who had just realized the ground beneath her feet might not be solid. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folded document. Not all of it. Just the first page. Enough to matter. I held it loosely. Not waving it. Just there. Visible. Real. "This house," I said slowly, "was purchased under a VA-backed loan." The woman blinked. My father didn't move. Lila didn't speak. I continued. "That comes with restrictions. Legal ones." I looked directly at my father now. Power of attorney doesn't give you the right to sell federally backed property without specific authorization. His lips parted slightly. No words came out. I took one more breath. "And this isn't just a family issue. It's a federal one." That's when it happened. The shift. Emily took a small step back. The woman went completely still. And my father, for the first time since I arrived, looked at me like he didn't understand what he was looking at anymore. Like the version of me he had always counted on. The one who would just take it. Wasn't standing in front of him. And in her place was someone else. Someone calm. Prepared. Already 10 steps ahead. People think consequences arrive like a storm. Loud. Sudden. Impossible to ignore. But most of the time they don't. They arrive quietly. In paperwork. In phone calls. In people showing up at your door with calm voices and serious expressions. And once they're there, they don't leave. I didn't stay on that porch much longer. I didn't need to. Everything that needed to be said had already been set in motion. I picked up my duffel bag, slung it back over my shoulder, and stepped away without looking back. My father called after me. "Wait." I didn't. Not because I didn't hear him. Because I had spent too many years stopping when he called. This time, I kept walking. The sheriff's office hadn't changed much. Same building. Same worn floors. Same quiet hum of activity. The kind of place where things didn't spiral. They got processed. I walked in, folder in hand. The deputy at the front desk looked up. Older man. Silver hair. The kind of face that had seen enough to know when something wasn't simple. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I need to file a report." "What kind of report?" I held his gaze.